Okay, I think we're ready. Let's call the meeting to order. And Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Senator Lang, Senator Hansen, Assemblywoman Backus,
Present.
Assemblywoman Marzola,
Present.
Assemblyman O'Neill,
Here.
Chair Daly.
Present, and please mark Senator Hansen absent excused. I guess he had a conflict and could not make it. So welcome to everyone joining us remotely, everybody here in the room. Thank you. Some housekeeping items before we begin. Take a moment. So please to make sure to mute your microphones when you're not speaking to minimize background noise. Members on Zoom, I don't think we have any. Please keep your video turned on during the meeting to assure we have a quorum. Mute your microphone when you're not speaking. Witnesses who wish to provide the subcommittee with additional information or have their complete testimony or handouts included in the permanent record should have a paper or electronic copy, should hand a paper or electronic copy to the secretary. Information on how to do this is provided in the subcommittee's website. When testifying, please remember to begin by turning on your microphone, clearly stating your name and the entity you represent. Meeting materials provided the subcommittee can be accessed on the webpage, and anyone who would like to receive electronic notification and access to the subcommittee's agendas, minutes, and final report can do so by going to Nevada Legislature's website and following the links provided. With that, we'll get started with agenda item 2, which is public comment. Public comment may be provided in 4 different ways, all of which are listed on the agenda, so I won't go over them. People can call in, so we'll start with anybody wishing to testify in public comment. Well, we'll go with Carson City since you're all the way up here. Please proceed.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me? Good morning, Chair Daly, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Madeline Burak. That's Madeline, last name Burak, and I am proud to serve as Governor Lombardo's legislative director. I am here today on behalf of the governor to reiterate the importance and necessity of the State Public Charter School Authority and Nevada's K-12 landscape, and to share the governor's strong support of GME and the work Director Mitchell is doing to move forward on the provisions set out in SB 350. I'll begin with agenda item 3A on the Advisory Council on Graduate Medical Education. The first priority listed in the governor's strategic plan under health and wellness is to invest in and expand graduate medical education. The governor is deeply committed to doing all that we can as a state to ensure that we are addressing our healthcare workforce shortages and directing resources to that effect to ensure success. This is why the governor was proud to sign SB 350 last session, and why our administration has remained committed to working with Director Mitchell and Senator Pezzina to expand on this work. This bill is intended to bridge the gap that exists between the needs of Nevadans in our rural and urban areas and create a permanent pipeline of residents who can ultimately receive their training and then build careers and families in Nevada. The director is working diligently to find solutions to hire a full-time staff member to manage the work of the council, and we are working with Senator Pezzina, who has been in communication with stakeholders from across the state regularly to determine who best to serve on this committee. While there have been delays in standing up this council as prescribed in SB 350, sunsetting this vitally important committee would only further postpone Nevada's ability to create a sustainable healthcare workforce pipeline, and ultimately Nevadans would suffer because of this. Director Mitchell is here to answer any questions you may have, but I'd again like to reiterate that Governor Lombardo and this administration remain strongly committed to investing and expanding funding for graduate medical education, and we implore the committee to rescind any possible consideration of a sunset on this important council. In addition to doing all that we can to support and grow our healthcare workforce in Nevada, it has also been a priority of Governor Lombardo since his first day in office to improve Nevada's education system, both in traditional public schools and charter schools, as well as affording parents, families, and students with educational choice. That is why I am here today to also reiterate the importance and necessity of the State Public Charter School Authority listed under Agenda Item 3D. Governor Lombardo's commitment to Nevada's public education system was particularly evident this past legislative session, with Governor Lombardo's historic investment in an additional $2.7 billion in Nevada's public education system. Charter schools provide parents and students with an alternative to traditional public schools, allow for innovation and flexibility in learning, provide tailored learning environments to address specific educational needs, while also encouraging active parent engagement. It is clear that many Nevada families support these benefits of charter schools, as the Charter School Authority serves over 62,000 students at 88 charter school campuses. I would like to note that the SBCSA is a fully functioning executive branch state agency with a fully constituted board. According to NRS, the SBCSA serves three purposes: authorize charter schools of high quality throughout this state, provide oversight to the charter schools that it sponsors, serve as a model of best practices in sponsoring charter schools, and foster a climate in the state in which all higher quality charter schools can flourish. Executive Director Melissa McAdon has been involved in K-12 education as a teacher and administrator since 1998. Hailing from Fallon, Nevada, she previously served as board chair of the SBCSA for the past 4 years, first joining the board in 2012. Perhaps most importantly, Director McAdon was the founder and CEO of Oasis Oasis Academy Public Charter School, a top-performing K-12 public school with more than 750 students and 100 team members. In her role as executive director, she oversees a team of 30 FTEs with offices in Carson City and Las Vegas. The SBCSA is overseen by a 9-member board whose members are appointed by the governor, the Senate Majority Leader, the Speaker of the Assembly, the State Board of Education, and the Charter School Association of Nevada. The SBCSA board approves or denies new charter school applications and oversees the academic, organizational, and financial health of the charter schools that the SBCSA sponsors. Again, the SPCSA is a fully functioning executive branch state agency and is a cornerstone of Governor Lombardo's education priorities, as well as ensuring that more than 62,000 Nevada students are equipped with the skills they need to pursue higher education or enter the workforce to lead successful lives. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment here in Carson City? Seeing none, let's move down to the Sawyer Building in Las Vegas. Anybody wishing to give in-person public comment down south? Okay, come on up. Don't be shy. Please state your name for the record and proceed when you're ready.
Good morning. My name is Jimmy Schwartz. I'm with the Ironworkers Local 433. I'd like to make comment about agenda item 3D. Myself and members of several other building trades have been looking into charter school projects in town. Excuse me. We believe the individuals building these schools are not being paid prevailing wage. I believe certain laws or codes might be taken advantage of, allowing this to happen. And I'm asking for your support to investigate the schools to ensure that prevailing wage is being paid to the men and women working on these schools and apprentice utilization is being upheld. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Leslie Patu, P-A-T-U. I represent the Heat and Frost Insulators of Local 135 here in Las Vegas. I'm here to speak on Section 3, Item D, the State Public Charter School Authority. Pretty much what we're asking for is more transparencies regarding when there's construction and work going on to these sites. Every time we've asked for information or try to figure it out, we get the runaround, whether it's from the board, from the school, or the general contractor. As of 2019, AB 136 was enacted to try to help alleviate some of this and also take the exemption out of charter school being prevailing wage jobs. So all we're asking for is the rule of law to be followed and a little bit more transparency when it comes to it. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jesus Loya. I'm with the Roofers and Waterproofers, Local 162, and I'm also here to talk on Agenda 3, Section D, and it's pretty much the same what these guys are talking about. But right now, the charter schools' current restrictions on allowing compliance checks for union rates are concerning. These limitations prevent us from ensuring fair compensation and adherence to union standards, which are fundamental to safeguarding the rights and wages of staff members. We strongly advocate that these schools, to enable full compliance activities, promote fairness and uphold labor agreements. Thank you.
Good morning, Deanne Matera, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 357. I'm here in support and repeating everything my brothers from the other building trades locals have said. We're looking for transparency and adherence with existing law. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment in Clark County? Okay.
I don't believe so, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing none, if we can, broadcasting, anybody on the phone lines?
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to make public comment for today's meeting, please press *9 now or raise your hand in the Zoom client to take your place in the queue.
Good morning, Chair Daly and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Jimmy Lau, and I'm the Vice President of Ferrari Reader Public Affairs, representing the Nevada Association of Career Colleges. NACC is a trade organization representing private post-secondary education schools in Nevada, and we greatly appreciate the Commission on Post-Secondary Education and Administrator Weiss' work to improve and modernize the regulatory environment for licensed institutions, including their forthcoming deployment of an electronic licensing platform. NACC supports the Commission's recommendation to eliminate the duplicative background check requirements in NRS 394.465 by providing an exemption for persons who already complete these background checks as part of their occupational licensing. And we have submitted a letter in support of this recommendation to the committee, though I don't see it reflected on Nellis at this time. This statutory change will eliminate administrative burden on licensed institutions and allow the CPE to concentrate its staff time on other important areas that improve the experience of our members without putting students at risk. We encourage the committee to support the recommendation and look forward to working collaboratively with the CPE and the legislature to identify other areas of efficiency. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Broadcasting, just keep them rolling.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Robert Diaz, ROBERTDIAZ. I represent the Sheet Metal Workers, SMART Local 88 in Las Vegas. I want to ditto the comments made by my brothers and sisters from the Southern Nevada Building Trades as it regards to Section 3D for the prevailing wage of charter schools. We are just trying to, as mentioned before, get the transparency opened up so we can see who the awarding bodies are and some of these projects that we have ongoing in the city of Las Vegas as well as across the state of Nevada. That way we can implement some of the prevailing wage to those who are building on those projects. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Aroni Barra with Southern Nevada Building Trades. Just to echo my building trade brothers and sisters, we want to make sure that we support charter schools, but we want to make sure that the charter schools are following the law and paying prevailing wages whenever they're building a new school. And we just want to make sure that there's more transparency. So if the state is going to continue to support it, we want to make sure that they're following what the state law requires. And that includes the transparency to making sure that we're paying prevailing wages. Thank you for your time and have a good rest of your day.
Hello, my name is Donald Heath. I'm calling on behalf of Southern Nevada Building Trades. I just want to say that I support my union brothers and sisters in their comments and concerns, and thank you.
Good morning, Chair Daly and members of the Sunset Subcommittee. For the record, my name is Donna Laffey with Ferrari Reader Public Affairs, representing Dignity Health St. Rose Dominican, which operates 7 acute care hospitals in the Las Vegas Valley. St. Rose currently offers graduate medical education residency programs in internal medicine and recognizes the importance of continuing to expand graduate medical education in our state. St. Rose is in strong support of the creation of the Advisory Council on Graduate Medical Education through SB 350 in the 2023 session and remains supportive of the continuation of the council today. We ask the subcommittee to support the continuation of the Advisory Council, given its vital role in helping to ensure that Nevada's severe physician shortage is addressed in a strategic way. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ignacio Prado. I'm the Executive Director of Aurora Academy Charter School and a member of the Charter School Association of Nevada. I just wanted to make public comment on item 3D regarding the State Public Charter School Authority. It is, in fact, a fully functioning body of the state. It is our main regulator, and most importantly, it is our local education agency, which serves as a conduit for federal and state grant compliance, as well as several important key laws like the IDEA and various others. And so I don't understand or believe that the Sunset Committee is even a proper venue to address the concerns that have been raised. I don't think I'm alone in saying that in many of the corners in our community of the charter school, administrators, teachers, parents, we were shocked to see this item on the agenda and don't understand why necessarily it's being brought forth in this manner. And so I strongly encourage you to maintain the functions of the State Public Charter School Authority as they are vital, and any scaling down or certainly any sunsetting would be catastrophic. And so although I'm empathetic to the need for transparency and the compliance of the law, I don't believe this is the proper venue. And I hope that you all continue to work with the State Public Charter School Authority as it continues. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Daly and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Dr. Bridget Fernapfel, and I'm the Director of Student Life at Pinecrest Academy of Northern Nevada. I'm here to provide public comment and consideration for Agenda Item 3D related to the sunset review of the SPCSA. Public charter schools and those they serve deserve the accountability afforded by the SPCSA in ensuring that public charter schools are not operating without the appropriate oversight. Such assurances are ensured by many other areas in the state, and the education of the state's future should not be an exception. In the state of Nevada, public charter schools serve approximately 60,000 students and their families, and afforded protection should be ensured to each and every one of them. The SPCSA ensures quality public charter schools. For example, Pinecrest Academy of Northern Nevada Public Charter School in Spanish Springs is currently rated as a 4-star school at the elementary level and a 5-star school at the middle school level, with high levels of math and reading proficiency in comparison to our local public schools. These ratings and achievements are a result of meeting the requirements and criterion established by the SPCSA and subsequently benefit the students and families at PAN, as well as the community that it is located in. Public charter schools such as Pinecrest Academy of Northern Nevada bring value to the neighborhoods of the students that they serve in Nevada, neighborhoods that are in many, if not all, of this committee's districts. I urge this committee to consider the efficacy and benefit of the public charter schools and the SPCSA in Nevada, and the benefit to the students and families that they serve, as well as the students and families that this community serves, and not sunset the SPCSA.
Hi, this is John Schaub. I'm the Assistant Principal at Pinecrest Academy of Northern Nevada, and I would like to echo the sentiments that were just spoken by Dr. Fronapple. I am been an administrator in Washington and Nevada now for 28 years, and have been highly impressed with the state charter authorities' comprehensive accountability measures to keep us financially and adhering to the rules and laws, as well as just regular state laws. And we are definitely a school which benefits our neighborhood, and one of the mentions I wanted to do was that our behavior team that Dr. Fronapple is a part of, with our financial accountability that we need to have, but the nimbleness of the smaller school under the charter authority allows us to bring in staff to help support our kids in need from various ethnic groups. And again, without going into further detail, I just want to echo the sentiments Dr. Frohnapple said in support of the Charter Authority's governing board. Thank you.
If you have recently joined us and would like to offer public comment for today's meeting, please press star 9 now or raise your hand in the Zoom client to take your place in the queue.
Hello, Chair, members of the Sunset Subcommittee. My name is Gil Lopez. I'm the Executive Director of the Charter School Association of Nevada, and we're here to provide support testimony for the Public Charter School Authority, Charter Authority, and how it effectively fulfills its intended role to providing diligent oversight and actively monitoring in schools and decisively addressing issues when they arise. The expansion of the public charter schools and the growth that we have seen are contingent upon their approval and the responsibility they manage with the utmost seriousness. This board is doing its intended function of providing high quality education to the state. Therefore, we do support it for the union brothers and sisters. If we would like, we can have a conversation on possibly getting facility funding next session. So I'll be contacting you guys so we can start talking about that. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time.
Broadcasting.
Kelly, I'm with,
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
good morning. My name is Patrick Kelly. I'm with the Nevada Hospital Association. I'd like to talk for a minute about the severe physician shortage in the state. Studies indicate that doctors who attend medical school in Nevada and who receive their residency and fellowship training in Nevada are highly likely to practice in Nevada. That's why increasing graduate medical education opportunities in the state is so important. We request that you not sunset the Advisory Council on Graduate Medical Education. The state needs a reasoned and thoughtful approach to the development of GME programs so that critical healthcare needs can be met. Thank you.
If you have recently joined us and would like to offer public comment for today's meeting, please press star 9 now or raise your hand in the Zoom client to take your place in the queue. There are no more callers wishing to offer public comment at this time.
Thank you, Broadcasting. So with that, we will close agenda item number 2, public comment. We will have a second public comment at the end of the meeting. I won't say anything on the comment before we go to agenda item 3. I'll just mention that most of the things that we look at under the Sunset Subcommittee, we don't actually sunset. Maybe the name should be changed, or it would be more aptly named if we were called the Guillotine Committee. Then you'd know that what we're looking for. But on the Sunset Subcommittee, we're reviewing and don't often sunset. So with that, we'll move to agenda item number 3A, the Advisory Council on Graduate Medical Education. I think we have Brian Mitchell, Director of Office Science, Innovation, and Technology, to give us a few more insights on this board and where we're at and where we're headed. Please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Brian Mitchell, Director of the Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology, for the record. My comments today will be brief. You heard earlier from Ms. Burak regarding the governor's strong support for graduate medical education, and I'll echo my support and my office's strong support for graduate medical education. Brief history, since 2015, my office has managed the graduate medical education program for the state. We've awarded over 30 grants and have facilitated the creation of over 130 different residency and fellowship training slots over that time, and those residency and training slots continue to produce new residents and fellows that practice here in Nevada. I'd like to be clear for the record that neither OSIT nor the governor's office asked for this agenda item to be heard by the Sunset Committee, and indeed my office and myself do not support the sunset of the committee. Graduate medical education is something that I've been doing for the last almost 10 years, and so this is a matter of personal interest and a project that I'm very interested in personally, and so I want nothing more than to see it succeed. And so I did not ask for this agenda item to be placed on the before this committee, and do not support the sunset of the GME Council. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And just for the record, before we go to questions, we're always happy to hear from the governor or any of the boards or anything else, but this is a legislative committee, and we decide which items are going to be on the agenda. So thank you. Committee, any questions? Assemblywoman Backus.
Thank you so much, Chair. And yeah, I'll reiterate, I mean, a lot of this is when we pull people in is sometimes to hear how we can also provide assistance. I've seen bills where the Sunset Committee makes recommendations, but one of these items, and I think it was discussed at our first hearing, that this was brought in because of the GME task force that was created by executive order by Governor Sandoval, which we had the GME task force, and I believe that's what Director was referencing to, where the money had been granted out. And then Senator Pazina moved for Senate Bill 350 this last legislative session to create the advisory council. And so it appears, and I'm not sure if it's still on the books or if the task force has already resolved itself, and now we're moving forward with the advisory council. But my question for Director Mitchell would be kind of what would be the status of the task force as part one of the question, and then I can ask my second part if that would be okay, Chair, after I get a response to the first.
Absolutely, you can follow up.
Brian Mitchell Brian Mitchell for the record, through you, Mr. Chair, to Assemblywoman Backus. The task force that you referenced was created in 2015 by executive order from Governor Sandoval, and that executive order had an expiration date in 2017, and so the task force has not existed since 2017.
Thank you so much, Director. So then my second question would be, is SB 350 was enacted and went into effect June 13th, 2023. I understand that the governor has 8 appointments to that advisory council, but when I'm looking at the information submitted, it just says membership is not fully appointed. Has the governor appointed anyone to this advisory council yet? And if so, who are those people?
Brian Mitchell for the record. I'm aware that the governor has appointed some members of the council. I do not believe that every member of the council has been appointed yet, and we'd be happy to provide a list of those who have been appointed to your staff following the meeting.
And Chair, may I have a follow-up?
Yes.
Thank you so much. And then since this advisory council went into effect last summer, has it had the opportunity to meet to discuss the grant opportunities so we can get moving with increasing our residency programs?
Brian Mitchell for the record. The council has not yet met. We are still in the process of hiring a full-time staff person to oversee and manage the GME grant program. That staff person was requested through the budget process independent of SB 350. And so once that staff person is hired, we'll convene the committee.
Thank you so much.
Committee members, any other questions from anyone in Clark County? Go ahead. Is that Senator Lang?
Chair, Senator Lang.
Yes.
Sorry. Can I just follow up on that last? You said that you haven't appointed all the people and you're still working on it. Do you have a timeline for that? Because sometimes I find that when we don't have a timeline, it drags on and on and on. So I'm just wondering if you have a timeline.
Senator Lang, thank you for the question. Brian Mitchell, for the record. I will follow up with the governor's office and provide a timeline to your staff following the meeting.
Thank you.
Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chair. Going back to the membership and the vacancies, I know, Director, that you stated that it was not, the governor had not fully appointed all the members, but can you tell me which positions have been appointed?
Madam Vice Chair, thank you for the question. Brian Mitchell, for the record. Off the top of my head, I do not know which members haven't been appointed, but we'd be happy to provide a specific list following the meeting.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, just comment. I think there's general consensus that we want to continue the graduation board and various things. We're hoping to get it stood up as quickly as possible. So I don't believe a sunset is in the future for this particular board at this time, or commission. But we do want to see some things move as quickly as we can. Obviously, getting the right person hired may take a little bit of time, but we're, as you can see from the questions, hoping that that's going to be quick. I also understand that Senator Pizzini is reaching out to all of the stakeholders and various things, and there may be additional legislation to strengthen this or move things on and get it so it's going to work well. Anyway, that's my understanding, and we're hoping to go forward. We'll have a work session later, no decisions made today. So with that, if there's no further questions, thank you, and we'll move. Do you have any comments?
Just comment, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the clarification from you, and just know that we're working as fast as we can to move this forward, and so there's no intentional delay on our part, and look forward to the resolution of this agenda item from the committee.
Understood, yes, and that's what we're looking for, and I think that was the genesis of the question. So, all right, thank you. Okay, with that, we will close item 3A and move to agenda item 3B, which is the Commission on Post-Secondary Education. Kelly D. Wiest? Please proceed.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Kelly Wiest. I am the administrator for the Commission on Post-Secondary Education. I will keep my comments brief too. We are basically the licensing and regulatory body for all private post-secondary educational institutions in the state of Nevada. We license 152 institutions as of today. Besides the full brick and mortar establishments that we have, we regulate 44 out-of-state institutions for both agents and for experiential learning. That would include things like medical residency, those types of things that other committees are working on. We also are the state approving agency for the VA education program. We have been that entity since our inception in 1975. One thing of particular to note, which many states cannot say, since we've been running that program, we have received a satisfactory rating from the VA, which is the highest rating you can possibly get, and we've retained that rating since 1975, and we're very proud of it. And through that program, we approve 81 different facilities in Nevada. That includes both the public institutions, private institutions, school districts, for beneficiaries, unions, and OJTs. And our primary focus is provide parameters for quality education, provide student protections, and then also create standards for offering a degree in the state of Nevada. Thank you, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, and you were short. Committee members, any questions for the Commission on Post-Secondary Education? I know this isn't one that I asked for, so somebody must have a question down there. Senator Lang.
Thank you. I actually have several questions, but I'll do a couple and then you can maybe go to someone else. How's that? Does CPE currently have a backlog on issues? And if so, are there any efforts underway to clear that backlog?
Thank you for the question. Kelly Weiss for the record. Yes, we have a backlog of 121 applications for, in our licensing process. That includes renewals, change applications, and move applications. So what we've been doing to resolve that, in 2020, we were actually legislatively authorized to have a computer system. For those who may not know, we are paper-based. So we are operating like 1985. Most people struggle with this. When the budget cuts happened at the beginning of COVID, our system was automatically removed, and we just received authorization this last session to purchase the system. So the initial onset of that was through American Rescue dollars, and then the ongoing cost was actually budgeted. So we are in that process right now. We issued a contract with a company called Advera that does this for very many small states across the country. They have 17 different states that are involved, several accrediting bodies. So right now we are in the business processes and making sure that everything will flow through the workflow system properly. And we are expected to launch that in July. So that's one of our initiatives. The other thing is we were at 4 staff members. That includes our one person that's 100% dedicated to the VA education program, and myself that's 70% state, 30% VA. So that person, that new person's an audit compliance investigator, which we lost in 2011 and are just now getting this back. They are half through the VA education program and half through the state funding. So they split their time between different types of audits. So we were able to onboard that person in November, and we hired internally from one of our staff members, and we were able to replace that other position at the end of December. So we've been fully staffed since January. So those are our 2 big initiatives. Our other things that are going on is trying to pick up applications that if a school has 5 applications, and we have some that have as many as, well, one of them that we thought was 2 applications was actually 18. So we're working through that, and to let you know, for the last few years we've been like analyzing, how things are flowing through our system. We have a 99% return rate. We have 2 institutions who seem to can get it right, and so we have to return the application for more information or for corrections, and that is happening on an ongoing basis. We're hoping the computer system will stop them from doing partial applications, which is our biggest culprit of our problems. So they'll have to do a full application, and then we will be able to move through them much faster. So, but right now we have a digital paper log, and they'll dump thousands of pages in no reasoning of how they put it together, and we have to figure out what they've done. So, so we have significant challenges, and we're hoping the things that we have been legislatively approved for will actually fix those issues. So, and we are moving through applications. We are on time with our VA education program, but those are very specific applications as we move forward.
Thank you. And then I know a lot of the regulations for the commission are statutory, and some of them are pretty archaic. What is your office doing? And you don't get a bill draft, I think, right? If you wanted to change?
No, we would have to run through, because we are under Department of Employment Training and Rehabilitation right now, so we would have to get them to sponsor the bill, so we're not able to do so ourselves.
Okay, because it was really enlightening to me to know that you're still using paper in 2024, right? And so are there regulations, statutory regulations that need to be updated? And if so, what are you doing to, how are you working that process so that you can get those regulations updated and be in 2024?
Yes, we'd love to be in 20. For the record, Kelly Weiss. We have dealt with the schools committee. We put forth different scenarios. The background is probably the most archaic of the processes, and that's just where we background all faculty. We background all administrative personnel who are like CFOs, the director, if they're involved in student activities, financial aid, admissions, and records. But what we found is over the last 10 years that I have been at the commission, we have not had one person that had an occupational license that was current that has ever sat in front of the commission for a hearing because of their background. So it appears to be a kind of a futile effort, and it's really hard to take a doctor who wants to come in and teach in a program to have to run through background, although he has a current license and has gone through all that processes with different occupational boards. So we'd love to see that one go away. And we are looking heavily at the NAC. There's a lot of our requirements for documents that are in the NAC that are a little bit onerous. We're in the hearings phase right now of removing one of the requirements that requires an institution have their advertising pre-approved by us. So that's in the final stages. The commission just needs to hear that to make that finalized. And besides that, every single session we have a bill that seems to be drafted. And I think our challenge is when we're dealing with the regulation of private post-secondary, we have to deal with accrediting bodies and Department of Ed, and they're always moving regulation. It always seems to be an increase in regulation versus a decrease in regulation. So I'm the advocate of everyone has to be able to do business here. We want it to be fair, and we want students to be protected, but we don't want to make it so difficult that they can't do so. And that's been our challenge with any bills. I think the last one that we had sponsored had to do with the seat hold for medical school and for pharmacy school because it was causing all kinds of issues in Nevada, and that one did pass. That was in, I think, 2017. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Committee members, any additional questions? Not seeing any. I just have one, just as a clarification. If I understood correctly, you guys do not get a bill draft separate from business and industry.
Kelly Weiss for the record. Right now, in the last session, we were moved under business and industry. However, in housekeeping measures, they did not change in RS 394 to actually move us under business and industry because we were prescripted to be under DETR with our budget and administrative under that. It was in the original bill and somehow was eliminated. So we are kind of setting between two agencies right now. DETR is doing all of our personnel, our IT, business services processes. So, and we are participating with business and industry on all the questionnaires for that boards and commissions group. But right now we are still under DETR until that happens. So, and yes, we do not get a separate bill draft.
I was just going to say, so that's
Okay.
the answer to the question.
So,
You don't
sorry.
get a separate bill draft. So just along those lines on your recommendation about the duplication on the background checks, which way do you think that would go if we were to make a recommendation and then the Legislative Commission was to take our recommendation, then a bill would be drafted in that regard? Seems to me that we would continue with the background check at the licensing board level and eliminate it from your requirements? That's how you guys envision it, or vice versa? If you're going to get rid of one or the other.
Kelly Weiss for the record. I would envision that we set up, right now we actually have two groups that do not have the background. They are people who are currently working for the Department of Defense. That has to do with our VA education program. And the other are people who are licensed by the superintendent of schools. That's a remnant of us being under Department of Education at one time. So those are two exceptions to that backgrounding process, and we were looking at seeing if all occupational bodies that do a background could be eliminated. So we would list all, what we envision, we would list all those occupational bodies that do a background check, and so schools would automatically know that they're not required to do that process.
So if it's not required in another agency that they're dealing with, it would fall to you guys. Otherwise, you'll accept the other background check. Is there a process for them to share that background check?
I'm not understanding. Share it with whom?
So if the licensing board did a background check, and then you don't have to because they did, are you able to look at their information?
We would use the fact that they're licensed as the parameters.
That-
So
that-
we,
that they've
if you
got-
have a
so you-
valid license.
So you don't have to see the background check. I'm
we
just
would not.
trying to understand it, so if we do make that type of a recommendation, we have it right and we have some input from you guys, so you don't come back and say, what are you guys doing? No. Okay, committee, any further questions? And you have that, right? Okay. Seeing no additional questions, thank you for your time. And we'll move on to agenda item 3C. And I understand we have some people by video in Elko for the Rangeland Resource Commission, Hank Vogler and Rachel Bazzetti. If I said that right. Broadcast, do we have them on the Zoom still? There they are. Okay, so at your convenience, please go ahead and start. State your name for the record and tell us how exciting the Rangeland Commission is. Rangeland Resource Commission.
Good morning. My name is Hank Vogler. To my left is Rachel Bazzetti, our part-time secretary. I've been involved with the Rangeland Resource Commission since it began in 1999. It was set up by Dean Rhodes, fashioned after Idaho's same promotion of use of rangelands in the state of Idaho. And the statute is NRS 563250. We are self-funded. No state funds are used. We assess ourselves 10 cents for every AUM. Those people who don't wish to participate can get a refund. And we have a sunset clause that says if we drop below 50% participation, the funds, we are through. So far, we've never even come close to that. We have a very dedicated group of people. Since its inception, no one has ever taken a penny in per diem or anything, travel time, nothing. We pay our secretary out of the funds, and other than that, every penny we can get together, we put to promote our industry. We are the stewards of the range. We contribute to livestock education. We're comprised of 9 ranchers that represent the different grazing boards. Rachel is a part-time staff, each represented on the grazing board. And then we have ad hoc members from the Nevada Cattle Association, Farm Bureau, and the Wool Growers. We expend over $100,000 in programs for promotion of public land ranching. We have a website, we're on Facebook and Instagram. Please don't ask me anything about that. I am officially a techno-tard. But we have had very good support, and we think we have spent the money wisely and as best we can. Anyhow, if there are any questions, I would certainly entertain them at this time, I guess.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions for the Rangeland Resource Commission? Anybody down south? Well, I have a, I don't think so. So anyway, you did answer a couple of my questions, and I suspected that this may have been the genesis from Senator Rhodes, although I didn't find that history, but thank you for that. So I just want to understand a little bit about, and I understand you're not state funded, so you guys get your resources through the industry, the grazing industry, and it's, if I read it correctly, 10 cents per head. Is that my understanding how you guys get funded?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay.
And
And
we
ahead.
those funds from, we collect those funds by when the Bureau of Land Management and the Forest Service tell us how many AUMs are used and by whom.
And then is that, are they required to pay that 10 cents or is it voluntary? Because I know you have a rebate program or where someone can ask for it back. So if they pay it and they give it back, so how much of what you collect do you end up returning? And I'm just trying to understand the mechanism on how that helps promote, or if it promotes people actually getting the grazing rights through BLM, because we know we've had issues with some people just saying, I'm not going to recognize the BLM, I'm going to do what I want, and I own that land, it's public, and I'm going to graze on it regardless. So what are we trying to, does this help promote people to comply with the BLM and Forest Service rules?
Well, the legislation, Henry Vogel for the record, Hank, it has a little meat in it. You're required to pay the money and then you have to ask for a refund. So, and again, if we get under 50% collection from those people, then that's the end of the program. And so far, we've never even come close. We have about an 8% return. So we have a lot of people that are very interested in it. And no matter what the controversy is of who owns the property, under the original documents of the Taylor Grazing Act and all the way back into history of the equal footing laws and all of those things, there is a split estate out there. And there's a lot of people that believe in public land grazing, and this state is 87% federally owned. So, or federally controlled, let's say that. And it's just that we try and educate people in Las Vegas and Reno that we are out there actually taking care of the land, even though some of the environmental groups like to point us out as being a bunch of evil rape villages and plunderers of the public domain, which is, we're the first ones affected. If we don't take care of that country, we don't have calves, we don't have wool, we don't have lambs. And all those things is how we pay our bills. So we need to promote our side of the story. And we have had some fairly decent success, but it's a self-funding, $100,000 is a drop in the bucket when you try and buy into programs in Las Vegas and Reno. It doesn't get us very far, but we've been able to put together some footage for public broadcast system, NPR, other things like that. We have websites. We just tell our story that we are the true stewards of the range. And these caveats that were put here when the first ranchers came out here was you control the water, you control the range, because Nevada didn't even take state lands because they didn't think section 16 and 36 in each township would generate enough revenue to be able to pay for its administration. And of course, we all know that's no longer true. So there's lots of reasons, and all these permits were granted to people that pay for them in a kind of a split estate, is at least part of the thinking of the people that are out here. And of course, we used to have 1,000-acre fires is a huge fire. Now we have 1,000,000-acre fires. And we've been eliminated or in areas, and guess what happens when you don't remove the light fuels? Called fire.
And I understand. I was just trying to wrap my head around it. It's not an area of expertise. I have some insights into the fire reduction portions and the argument that's been going on for decades regarding, oh, we had this burn area, so we got to keep the grazing out, versus trying to manage it a little bit better through the grazing, and everybody has their own opinion on which way is best on that. I was just trying to understand, which is the reason I asked the question on that. Okay, appreciate it. Any additional questions from the committee? I see Senator Lang.
Yes, I'm looking at the I guess it's what you filled out, what we have in our book. And on the commission members, I'm seeing that we have a whole bunch of expired terms. And so I'm curious what you're doing to fill those terms.
Henry Vogler for the record, the different grazing boards and like the Cattle Association, it's usually the last president or whoever he appoints, Farm Bureau, wool growers. We are a very small element. There's not very many of us, and I'm on the N4 grazing board, and it's sort of like who wants to do it, and I've pretty well been in a voluntary position, but politically or whatever, I have no idea. The reappointments are not in our, it's up to the state, and for whatever reason, they either failed to appoint some of us, or Bert Harris and I have been on there since day one. And that is, that's 25 years ago. So again, and that's up to the governor and whoever appoints the people. We turn in the names of the people that are willing to serve. There's not hundreds of people lined up saying, pick me.
Mr. Chairman, I might add that I do work with the Adelina.
And if you could state your name for the record.
Oh, Rachel Bazzetti. Last name is Bazzetti, Buzzetti. I'm the director. I do communicate with the governor's boards and commissions representative there. I think her name is Adelina. Several times a year, trying to get my commission members reappointed.
So, Chairman, I'm just wondering if that's something that we can help with through this committee to draw attention to the board members and how they need to be reappointed, because I find that as we go through this, other boards are in the same situation. They're ready to be appointed, but it's held up in bureaucracy. Easy to say.
Understood.
Henry Vogler for the record, would you please, if you get these appointments taken care of, please get them staggered. So if we have people that go off, we don't have a mass exodus all in the same year. That's the way it was supposed to be set up. Thank you.
And thank you. And I agree, Senator Lang, there might be something we can do. If we've got people that are willing to step in, but there's a glitch or a holdup or some other organization is not, completing their paperwork, no job is done till the paperwork's complete. Maybe you give them an incentive by saying, hey, it's up for bid, get your person appointed. If you don't, some other agency gets to take your spot, right? It's like the NFL draft. If you don't make your pick in time, the next team gets to go. I kid on that one, but yes, we'll look into something when we get to the work session to make a recommendation on that. Assemblyman O'Neill, did you have a question?
No, I can't. No, thank you.
No, he didn't. Okay, any other questions down south still? Okay, not seeing any. All right, guys. Well, thank you. And if you do think of something that might be helpful, be sure and let our policy analysts know, and we will take it into consideration. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Okay. We're going to move on to agenda item 3D, State Public Charter School Authority, Melissa McAdon. Well, you got all this technology, so proceed when you're ready.
Good morning. My name is Melissa Mackinnon, Executive Director of the State Public Charter School Authority. With me today, I have Jennifer Bauer, Director of our Finance and Operations, and in Clark County, we have Dr. Tanya Holmes Sutton, the Chair of the SPCSA Board, and General Counsel Samantha King Powell. First up, I'm going to provide some general context about the SPCSA. The purpose of the State Public Charter School Authority is to authorize charter schools of high quality throughout this state with the goal of expanding the opportunities for pupils, including without limitation pupils who are at risk. Provide oversight to the charter schools that it sponsors, and lastly, to serve as a model of the best practice in sponsoring charter schools and foster a climate in the state in which all high quality charter schools, regardless of sponsor, can flourish. In addition to 33 full-time employees, the SPCSA also has 8 independent contractors working on various projects for the agency. Many of the emergency funds have been spent by September of 2023. The $66.6 million is what remains in grants that have not ended. Additionally, as you know, we have a 9-member board appointed by the Governor, Senate Majority Leader, Speaker of the Assembly, State Board of Education, and the Charter Association of Nevada. The SPCSA board meets regularly to carry out its statutory responsibilities. On the left, you see a date of the last year of our meetings linked to the public agendas for those meetings. On the right, highlights some of the key decisions that were made at those board meetings, which include approve various charter school amendment applications in accordance with NRS 3888.276, approved academic, financial, and organizational performance frameworks in accordance with NRS 388A.229, issued notices of concerns when appropriate, approved transportation plans and funding pursuant to AB 400, recommended 3 names to the governor for the consideration for the new executive director of the agency per NRS 388A.190, renewed charter school contracts for 3 schools in accordance with NRS 388A.285, approved 4 new charter schools to open in the 2024-25 school year in accordance with NRS 388A.246 through 255, closed a charter school in accordance with NRS 388A.360, reviewed annual site evaluations conducted in accordance with NRS 388.223, monitored progress towards strategic plan goals, and reviewed and approved several statutorily required reports. The SPCSA additionally held workshops regarding several of our regulations listed on this slide. Those regulations are now at LCB. Additionally, we have already begun meeting with the governor's office regarding priorities for the upcoming session. We are a growing ecosystem in the state. Our agency and board are functioning as intended. As such, there is no need for the subcommittee to recommend statutory revisions, consolidations, or termination of the authority. The SPCSA, in context of the state, first you have the Nevada Department of Education, which is the state education agency. Underneath that, you have the State Public Charter School Authority. The State Public Charter School Authority is an authorizer of charter schools. It is a local education agency, and it is a state agency. Under the state charter, under the SPCSA, we have charter holders and vendors. Each charter holder may have one campus or multiple campuses. Each campus is led by a school leader and has a teacher and staff, and each charter school has vendors that provide them services, such as payroll, professional development, maintenance, information technology, etc. There are 81 charter school campuses sponsored by the SPCSA located across 5 counties: Churchill, Clark, Elko, Washoe, and White Pine. Of the school campuses sponsored by the SPCSA, about 85% are located in Clark County. As you can see from this slide, the SPCSA is the third largest body of students in the state, with approximately 62,000 students attending SPCSA-sponsored charter schools. That does not include students attending Washoe County or Clark County-sponsored charter schools. By offering a variety of school models, the SPCSA enables Nevada families to choose schools that best align with the needs and interests of their children, including arts integration, Montessori, bilingual education, career and technical education, alternative high schools serving undercredited students, schools aimed to meet the needs of young women, dual enrollment high schools, online or blended learning, classical education, STEM schools, and project-based learning. The remainder of this presentation outlines our progress towards our strategic goals. I am not going to go through the entire presentation, but I wanted it there should you have any specific questions about that and for your reference. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, committee, any questions for the State Public Charter School Authority? Not seeing any down. Someone go ahead if you have a question. Okay, none? Mr. O'Neill? No? Okay. Well, seeing as how I asked for the State Public Charter School Authority to be as you might suspect, I will have several questions. If anyone thinks of a question along the way, get my attention and we'll let you ask it. A part of what I wanted to go over today, and I have a lot of questions, so this may take a little bit of time, and we may need to have you come back later if you don't have answers for us today. Well, we'll get you scheduled for the next one. So I first just wanted to start with and make sure we have an understanding consistent. We both have the same understanding. You're familiar with the concept of separation of powers outlined in our state constitution.
Melissa Macadam for the record, yes.
Right, so we have the 3 branches. We have the legislative, the executive, and then, of course, the judicial branch. And I know in our Constitution, it says that the Article 4, the legislative authority of this state shall be vested in the Senate and the Assembly. So in other words, the Senate and the Assembly, the legislature sets the policy. We enable agencies such as yourself to carry out the policy enacted by the legislature. And then, of course, we set a budget for those agencies to carry out the policy. Are we in agreement on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the responsibility on the executive branch is under the governor, and then all of the agencies that fall under that is to see that the laws of the state are faithfully executed. So we can agree that you're part of the executive branch, and your job is to make sure that the laws are faithfully executed.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. So my intention here is I want to investigate how the charter school laws enacted by the legislature are being interpreted, administered, and to help determine if the laws are being applied within the intent of the legislature that has been enacted, and to determine if the laws are being applied as intended to achieve the goal of the legislature, and to ensure that the laws as they are currently being applied still align with the policies the legislature intended. And there may be disagreement on that, and I'm sure you guys are going forward and saying, hey, this is what we think the law says we can do. But I want to find out if it still aligns with what the legislature was intended. I'm reminded of the movie, a lot of movie quotes, I'm sorry, but in Gladiator when he says, there was a vision of what Rome was intended to be, and Marcus Aurelius, and this is not it, if you remember. So I want to find out if your version and how it's being administered is in alignment with what the legislature intended and envisioned, and if there needs to be adjustments or if we're on the right track. Okay. So there are, and excuse me if I jump around because I got a lot of different questions and a lot of different places. So I'm going to try to stay on track the best that I can if I can find my notes. So I guess I would try to start with, can you give me some information? I read through, and it was tedious, the entire statute, made my notes. I read through the entire regulations, made my notes, and that's like 140 pages, and I put it in a Word document. So I'm not going to be able to scroll through and ask every little thing. So I'm going to try to stick on broader topics, and if I have to come back or jump around, I apologize. So I guess I would want to understand a little bit the hierarchy or the process, because I had several questions, and I don't know how it works, right? So when a charter school wants to be formed, the words that are referenced in there that I saw was a committee to form a charter school. And they would fill out an application, and then volumes of stuff that's in that application. And are you going to hire an EMO? Where's your facility? How are you going to do X, Y, Z? And all that stuff. So I'm trying to figure out on this charter to form, how do they come into existence? Who forms them? What are the criteria for that? And I know it's in there, but explain it to me. Do they have the same disclosure policies that the board people have to have? Because it seems to me that there's awful close relationships on these committee to form with educational management organizations, and that may not have been what the legislative intent was. And I'm almost going to let you speak here. Because it seems to be disjointed to me that they're ahead of, that the committee to form a charter committee has somehow gotten ahead of the governing body, the board. And then that comes way later after they've been approved, that then the committee to form chooses the board to comply with what they already said they do. And I don't see where the committee to form has authority to enter into contracts, make agreements, do any of the things that they're doing in the application. I just don't see that. And I know they're only giving you proposed agreements. So I just want to know how all of that works. Who's really controlling this? How does the committee to form get formed? Who's driving that? And then when does the governing body come in, and then what authority do they have after that? So I know it's a lot.
Sorry.
I'm just trying to lay out what my concerns are and how it works. So walk me through that.
Melissa Macadam for the record. I feel like you're starting off with an easy one for me, so thank you, appreciate that. So the committee to form, how it's intended is that charter schools are supposed to be schools that are desired by the community within that they're going to serve. So let's just take, the committee to form that I was on, right? I was living in Churchill County. I wanted another choice for the students in that community, so we put together a committee to form of like-minded individuals to put forth a proposal to the charter school. So that's how it works. It's a group of people from within the community that they are going to propose to serve that come together with a mission and a vision to better educate kids in the community that they're proposing to have their charter school. That is not really any sort of like legal entity. So once they come, they put forth their proposal. As you said, it's all outlined in statute, what all that has to include. It's very cumbersome. These are often, 1,000-page applications. Those get reviewed very thoroughly by both the staff of the SPCSA as well as the outside evaluators. Only about 43% of those applications actually get recommended for approval. So it's a very rigorous process. That also includes an interview of the committee to form, because it's important for us to understand if the people involved really understand the rigors of a charter school, not just the academic rigors, but the financial and organizational requirements of operating a school, or of operating an organization such as a school. So we do an interview during that process as well. If the application is approved, then the staff takes it before the State Public Charter School Authority Board with our recommendation to either approve or deny. As I said, only about 43% get recommended for approval. If the SPCSA board votes to approve a charter school, at that point, that is when they will become they will get a contract. And generally what happens is that committee to form becomes the first board of directors. And that's when all of those things go into place, like you're talking about. Disclosures, requirements for ethics training every year, requirements for open meeting law training, requirements to hold all your meetings in a public, in accordance with open meeting law, background checks for all board members. So all those things that you're talking about, once they have been approved and have a contract, that's when that goes into effect.
Okay, and don't want to mince too many words, but so when this committee is formed and they're doing this stuff, just a group of citizens, and I believe you used the word intended, how it's intended to work. They come forward and they said, hey, we just want to form a charter school, and everybody knows it is not as simple as that, right? Because you do have to have a facility, you have to be able to hire teachers, even just to get to that, to fill out the application. These are not just a group of citizens who are just saying, hey, wouldn't it be nice to have a charter school? So how are they backed? How are they? They must have some funding behind them to say, hey, we have the ability to hire the school, or they're meeting with somebody that has the wherewithal to do these things, and then to show that they have the financial wherewithal as well. So who else is that other person, either officially on the committee to form or in the background?
Melissa McAdam for the record. So I can assure you that most of these committees to form have no money whatsoever. Once they have put in their application, many of them apply to Opportunity 180 for a grant. That is a reimbursement-based grant, and it is dependent on them getting approved by the SPCSA, but that is where they generally get their money to get going, is through organizations like that. I'm trying to even think of it is possible that you could, that a committee to form could hire a third-party vendor to help them write their application. Now, where they would get those funds, like when we were starting, we wrote our own application, but we all just put in like $1,000 and we're like, here we go, we have $5,000, right? So it just depends on, it's very much a case-by-case basis.
And thank you. And that's probably why 60% of them don't go through, because they don't have the wherewithal, the backing, and the various things on that. So this committee to form doesn't have the disclosure requirements that the board does on who they might be affiliated with or any of that stuff. So they can be anybody in theory. So they could be an organization that is just wanting to. I'll save that, or I'll ask that question differently later. So they don't have to disclose who they are or what affiliations they have.
Melissa McAdam for the record. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear on that. Yes, within the charter school application, they do have to disclose, yes, they do have to disclose who they are, if they have affiliations, if they, Yes, within the application, that's one of the requirements.
And then there are disqualifying provisions in there that would say, so I disclosed it, but if there's conflicts of interest, various things, does that disqualify, or is it just, now you have to disclose it and the rest is all okay?
Melissa McAdin, yes, it could disqualify someone from being on the committee to form.
Right, because you said the way it's intended to be, and I'm trying to get to how it actually might be. And that's where I'm trying to figure some of that out. And that's just one aspect of, some of the questions on how this committee, and then you say that mostly then they become the board, but it's not required.
No, Melissa McAdin, for the record, it's not required. Statute does spell out certain memberships that these boards have to have, like a parent, a licensed teacher who doesn't work at the school, 2 out of the 3, an attorney, an accountant, someone with HR experience. So if the committees to form don't already have that makeup, which most of them do because they recognize they need that expertise to put forth a good application. But if for some reason they don't, then yes, they absolutely would have to meet the statutory requirements for the boards once they're approved.
Yeah, so there's the way it works, and the way it could work, the way it's set up is that you could have a committee to form that meets the requirements for that. They do the application and various things. They say, hey, we have this agreement with this organization, and we have another agreement or proposed agreement with another one to buy land or build a facility, whatever it might be. And then after that, they can go out and pick a board that's going to comply or align with all of the stuff they want, rather than the board being the driver. Because after it's formed and they get their application, the board is the one that has the authority and all of these things to actually enter into the contract, expend money, et cetera. It just seems backwards to me.
Melissa McAdin, for the record, technically, I think what you're saying is true. The committee to form could be all gone and a whole nother group could come in. I cannot think of a time that has happened, but I could absolutely find out for you what the ratio of them staying on as the first board is, if you would like that specific information.
Technically true is still true, right? I'm just saying. So how does, and I know there was a comment when I watched one of your meetings. How is it viewed, or has it morphed, or has it changed? Does the State Public Charter School Authority, when I look at some of the old legislation, it was meant to, potentially be an alternative for kids that were struggling, maybe didn't fit into the regular school system, and to say, hey, we're gonna have another model that we can experiment with to see, and if we come up with something, if there's something that's developed that actually could work, so then it would be overlapped into the public schools, traditional public schools, because I know you're going to tell me that charter schools are public schools, and I don't disagree. Into traditional public schools to try to be a way to find out how can we improve all education, not just education in charter schools, but across the board. And we'll get into some of the other questions later on that. So has that mission changed, or has it now changed to, because this is maybe what I see, maybe I'm biased, I don't know, I might be. It's changed into, no, we're competition to public schools. We're going to be an alternate network of competing schools with fundamentally different rules and ways of operating. And I know that at least one of your board members approving a recent charter expansion, I guess, in Washoe County said, well, it sounds like Washoe County is just afraid of competition. So has that directive, that motive, that initial idea of the legislature changed? And then I know the intent and then I want to know the reality.
Melissa McAdam for the record. I'm going to revert back to that very first slide. The purpose of the State Public Charter School Authority is to authorize charter schools of high quality throughout this state with the goal of expanding the opportunities for pupils, including pupils who are at high risk, to provide oversight to the charter schools that it sponsors to ensure that those charter schools maintain high educational and operational standards, preserve autonomy, and safeguard the interests of pupils in the community, and to serve as the model of best practice in sponsoring charter schools and foster a climate in this state in which all high-quality charter schools, regardless of sponsor, can flourish. That's why the State Public Charter School was started, and that's been our mission and our directive since its inception. Now, before the State Public Charter School was around in 2011, I can't really address that. That was before my time. But as far as the SPCSA goes, when it became into existence in 2011, this was the purpose, and it continues to be the purpose today.
Okay, so that was the intention. And I would offer that true, technically true, don't know which, that I think it's changed a little bit. And right, wrong, or indifferent, people were trying different ideas. They were pitched different ideas on how we would move forward with charter schools and things that we would put into place. And then once they're in place, and then they take on a life of their own and maybe changes that direction or changes what was intended by the legislature. Because part of what I see is, and when I read through all this stuff and I'm talking to as many people as I can, former legislators that were on the education committees, current legislators that chair the education committee in our chamber, we see things going in a different direction a lot of times, and we see the for-profit element of the educational management organizations, and not just here, across the country, where they see it as a opportunity. It's their business model to get as many kids as they can under the charter organization deal and the education management organization, because that's how they make money. It's a profit center, and it has changed from a public school to help the kids, disadvantaged kids, to find niches where we can maybe improve the entire educational process, to just getting more kids under the charter school authority, because that's the way they make money. They don't have that opportunity in traditional public schools because you have a school district and you run those things. And they go out and they sell and they try to find people and say, hey, we can help you get a charter school over here. Wouldn't this be wonderful? And then they use all your statistics about we have higher graduation rates and we have more higher star ratings, et cetera. And we'll get into some of that on how I think some of that is also not entirely accurate. But has it changed unintentionally, your part or our part, because you're allowed to do this under the law, where educational management organizations have just viewed this and are expanding charter schools as a profit center? And you can deny it, but I think it's true.
Melissa McAdam, for the record, respectfully disagree. As far as the SPCSA is concerned, we're concerned with what our vision says right here, innovative and high-quality public schools for every Nevada student. So we're looking at student outcomes as the foundation, and that's our top priority, is how are the school students sitting within schools in our portfolio performing, and that's our priority.
And then I have some more questions on EMOs, but I got to find my notes in here, so I apologize for that. So I may come back to that if it's okay. Let's move to a couple of questions on definition of a school. Because I've also seen some change, which I don't think was intended by the legislature, and we'll see that, but maybe it's allowed, maybe it's not. So when I'm looking at traditional public schools, a school, by definition, is each individual school. I have elementary school A, middle school B, high school C, and each one of those schools is an individual location, a site on that. Is that the same for charter schools, or is it different? Because I know you mentioned multiple campuses, and now you're going to say, well, I have campus A and campus B, and they don't have to have the same, don't have to go through the same application. Do they get to lump their statistics together? They have separate administrators, but they only have one board. And I don't know that that was intended to be done or how that's going. So how do you define a school? As one individual location, or do you have this alternative model?
Melissa Mackinnon, for the record, we do identify a school as an individual location. However, I think we can't conflate that with the charter holder, right? The charter holder, that board, may oversee multiple campuses, multiple schools, if you'd rather use that word, just like, Washoe County School Board oversees multiple schools, right? So a charter holder, the board, can oversee multiple schools if it is approved to do so. I think the other part of your question is that statute does, NRS 388A279 does allow for charter amendments to expand existing charter schools who, again, go through a rigorous application process and have to have the data to back it up. And in that case, then they can be approved to add another school or campus, however you want to refer to it, as outlined in NRS 388A279.
And I understand that interpretation of that, which is why I did that, is I want to say, what's your interpretation and what was the legislature's intent, and do they still align? Because it seems to me that if I have a board, a charter school board, and I want to open up a whole new school, that it wouldn't just be an amendment to my existing charter for my existing school. And you used the terms interchangeably. You said, well, if Washoe County oversees multiple schools, and I don't know that it's exactly the same comparison, but each individual school, each campus is a separate school. When they do this amendment under this charter, then I can, I'm going to have 20 schools, I'm going to have 10 schools, I'm going to expand grades, and I heard your presentations. I watched it at Education, and I saw your presentation the other day as well. So I've heard some of this already on that amendment process, but I'm not sure that's in line with what the legislature intended. So let me continue looking at my notes here.
I got a couple questions.
You have a question?
Yeah, just a couple.
We're good. I'll take a break because I got to look and find my notes. And I'm sure you might have some counterpoints or something. I don't know. But carry on, Mr. Assemblyman.
Thank you, Senator. Some of these are going to be easy. I was looking at chart 16. It's your rating of COVID-19 has continued to make academic gains. And you show 73% of your schools earning a 3 or better, and then 47% earning 4 or 5. That adds up to more than 100. I'm trying to figure out where's the overlap, and you've got 73 in one, 47 in the other. Should you just be talking about that second one should just be 5 stars, or?
So the first chart includes 3, 4, and 5-star schools.
73%.
Melissa Mackinnon, for the record, I apologize. That first one represents 3, 4, and 5-star schools. That second one represents only 4 and 5-star schools. So you pull out the 3-star schools. I think a more clear picture of it can be seen on this slide, where it breaks it down by 1-star schools. So little I can't even see that. Are right here in the pink. 2-star schools right here, 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star.
Okay, that's what I was comparing, and I was a little confused on some of that. But I do have a couple other questions, if I may, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you. The testing that's discussed in slide 17 on how well the charter schools do in comparison to public schools, it's the same testing, I assume, isn't it? There's no modification. I've heard it's the same standards, correct?
Melissa Mackinnon for the record, yes. The same test, same standards.
Okay. And how many, do you know over the last, I think going back about 5 years or so, how many charter schools have been closed for failure to meet their standards, to the board standards that they originally set for them? Do you know?
Melissa Mackinnon for the record. I don't know offhand. It's probably been more than 5 years since a charter school closed due to poor performance. There have been schools that have closed for financial reasons, like not having enough enrollment just to sustain them financially. But it's been many years since a charter school was failing academically in the state, and that we had to trigger NRS 388A 300 that was an automatic closure. It's been a very long time.
I guess my memory is...
Time flies.
Time flies, yeah, because I knew we had several issues here in Carson, and I thought a couple schools were recently closed in Las Vegas.
Melissa Mackinnon for the record. So there was a school many years ago, more than 5, that was in Carson that did close down for chronic underperformance academically. You're correct about that. In Las Vegas, there was a charter school that closed last year. Again, it wasn't because they had a poor academic. It was an all-girls school, and they just had low enrollment, and so it just financially wasn't viable. And their board, we didn't close them down, their board turned over their charter because it wasn't financially viable.
And then here's one of curiosity. Across the nation, I won't just talk about Nevada, but across the nation, have there been any studies or data developed where charter schools have damaged the performance of public schools? Does that make sense? Do you understand the
Yep. Melissa Mackinnon for the record. There have been numerous studies about that, and I would be happy to, I have a file of them, and I would be happy to send them your way if you would like.
Are they nationally, or do you have any specific to Nevada?
Melissa Mackinnon for the record. I don't believe there's any in there that are specific to Nevada, but I'd have to, it's a pretty big file, so I'd have to go back and just double check.
Chair, would you mind if we do get some of the more recent studies? I really would be curious about that, because I know we've had a lot of discussion among ourselves about performance and the damage or their involvement with the public schools.
And yes, as I said earlier, we're probably going to have you come back with some additional information that you couldn't have anticipated and would have known. For instance, even Assemblyman O'Neill's question right there. So yes, I see you're making notes. So yeah, we can take that stuff up next meeting.
I appreciate that. That's all I've got for right now. You may stir something else up.
I bet I will. Okay, I found my my notes on the EMO part, and I believe I'm in the administrative code, and there's a whole section on some of the stuff. So these are some of the questions, and they may not be directly related to the EMO, but I know it's and this goes along to some of what the Assemblyman was just asking as well. So 338A 560 in the administrative code, 3A, each campus of the charter school to be evaluated against specific performance goals for academic achievement according to the performance framework adopted by the State Public Charter School Authority And then B says the charter school to be evaluated as a whole based on the weighted average of the data concerning pupil advancement. Now, not claiming to be an expert on what all of that means, but the question is, so what set of data is going to be used for the state accountability score and your star rating, the data collected under 350, NAC 355, 388, 560, not necessarily based on the same factors from what I could see. You got 385, 820 for non-weighted data or individual to each charter school performance framework weighted data. How might the weighted data affect the statewide accountability standards? I don't know if school districts get to use it or not, but there's all this data being collected, and how does it all mesh together?
Sure. Melissa Macadam for the record. So I think that it's easiest to compare it to just take like, Carson City School District. Each one of their schools is going to be rated on the Nevada School Performance Framework, every elementary school, every middle school, and every high school. The same is true for charter schools. So let's just pretend we have charter school A, B, and C. They have Campus 1, Campus 2, and Campus 3. Campus 1, if it has an elementary school, that elementary school will be rated. If it has a middle school, that middle school will be rated. If it has a high school, that high school will be rated. The same is true for Campus 2, and the same is true for Campus 3. So every school is rated on the same Nevada School Performance Framework that all public schools in Nevada are rated against. Then what the SPCSA does is we take that data and we roll it up into our academic performance data, and we look at not only that data, but also how that data compares to other schools in the area. And there's some other metrics on our academic performance framework that we look at in addition to the Nevada School Performance Framework.
So how is the weighted data? What are they talking about when they talk about weighted data?
Melissa Macadam for the record. I actually am not sure what you're talking about, so I'll have to go read it myself, and I could be happy to get back to you on that. I'm not 100% sure what you're asking or what you're referring to.
Well, it's in the 388A, might be other places, 0.560, subsection 3B. Each charter school to be evaluated as a whole based on a weighted average of data concerning pupil achievement.
So I think it's just saying what the data that is calculated, Melissa Macadam for the record, the data that is calculated in the NSPF is by nature weighted data. Like, that's what it is. So it's the same data that every public charter school is being measured against. It includes proficiency data. And that is weighted, I'm not going to get these exactly right, so this is not exact, right? But like proficiency data might account for 20 out of 100 points, right? Growth data is weighted much higher, right? The state of Nevada has decided that student growth is more important than student proficiency. So it's weighted, it's a 60 points. They have chronic absenteeism getting a certain number of points, or the points are the same as the weight, if you will. So that has been determined by the state of Nevada through the Nevada School Performance Framework. So there's all different on high school, one of the weights is graduation rates. One of the weights is how they perform on the ACT test. One of the weights is how many people get advanced diplomas. So each one of these performance frameworks has different metrics and they're weighted differently that all roll up to the overall star rating.
And maybe you can help me get some more information on that, and I'll try to come back as well and refine some of my questions there. Next question I had, and this is going slightly off of the last topic, but it's the next one on my notes here. So 388A 570, talking about employees of the educational management organization, and it says that they're required that they do not. The person is not employed by the governing body of the charter school, and the provisions of several NRSs don't apply to those employees, et cetera. And then they specifically made sure to say that the statutes regarding the collective bargaining rights of any teachers that they might have and benefits. So they don't get the rights and the benefits. So I was curious on how that worked because I know there's another provision in there that says EMOs can provide, I believe, up to 30% of the teachers that are there. They can provide the administrator, et cetera. So if they're not allowed to have the same benefits, are those teachers employed by the EMOs subject to PERS? Or are they not subject to PERS? And how do you make sense out of those two conflicting provisions?
Melissa Mackinnon for the record. I don't have the statistics in front of me on what percentage of employees at each school are employed by the EMO, but what I can tell you is, as you know, there is a major teacher shortage, and I don't know any teacher out there right now who's willing to work for not getting PERS and not getting health care. So it's a very high percentage, maybe even as close to 100% of teachers at charter schools are employees of the board and are receiving PERS and health and whatever other benefits the charter school may be offering in addition to that.
So just to be clear, charter school teachers that work for EMOs do not get PERS?
Melissa Mackinnon for the record. I honestly have no idea. I'm just not familiar with any teacher who works for an EMO, so I can't answer that question.
And if I read your statute correctly, they can provide up to 30% of the teachers.
Melissa Mackinnon for the record. Again, I'm not familiar with that statute because it's not something that's actively in play. So I'll have to take your word on that. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Well, every time that you say you don't know, you'll bring it back to us next time, right? Okay. That's just the way I had that. The last thing on that is, even though they're not subject to 288 under RNRS, if they're privately employed, they still have their collective bargaining rights under the NLRA, I'm assuming, right? You wouldn't be able to prohibit that anyway, so.
Right.
But they do have collective bargaining rights either way, so. So my understanding, and as it relates to EMOs, no single contract can be more than 15% of the income to the charter school. Is that my understanding of that provision for one vendor or whatever it is that they might be paying?
That is my understanding. Melissa Mackinnon for the record. That is also my understanding.
So would that include, all right, so I'm going to pay the EMO to do A, B, C, and D, but then I have a different contract over here to have them do additional services. Is it two 15% or one 15% to one entity? Can they also be paying rent to these organizations or a subsidiary of those organizations? So is there an ability to get around that 15% per organization or per contract?
Melissa Mackinnon for the record. I honestly don't know. I'll have to look into that and get back to you.
Very good, because I think you might be surprised what you find. So what are, and you may or may not know this, and this may be an unfair question because you may not know this, so what type of services are educational management organizations allowed to provide or traditionally provide? My understanding, they try to, I don't know if they do the legal work, but they say, hey, we're going to help you with curriculum, buying books, those types of things. So can you explain a little bit on what they typically do and if there's limits on what they can do?
Melissa Mackinnon for the record. So both EMOs and CMOs provide, there's a long list of services they could provide, right? Like they could provide professional development. If it's a CMO who's has a model somewhere else, like, a project-based learning school that is now, coming to Nevada, they might provide professional development to the teachers so that the model can be implemented with fidelity in Nevada. They could provide something just as simple as like payroll or, purchasing. They could provide, really honestly, the list is pretty broad, and it just depends on a case-by-case basis.
Understood. And I was just trying to get a better idea of it myself. So under NAC 388A580, and it's talking about some of the things that they have to list out, if I'm reading that correct. And one of them is under 6A, it says the amount of money received by educational management organizations from public and private sources to carry out the terms of the contract. So I guess I'm questioning about is there a split between this public and private sources? And then when does it stop being private and become public? Is there some other organization that's just saying, hey, I'm going to pay the EMO separately above and beyond here? Or does it have to flow through the board? That's who they have a contract with. And then as soon as the board has it, it no longer is private money. It becomes public money and would seem to be subject to those 15%. So can EMOs get paid by some other organization to perform services for the charter school to get around the 15% and some of these other rules? And these are just the webs we weave and some of the things that the problem you have with a for-profit organization.
Melissa Mackin, for the record. I'm only looking at charter schools, right? So yes, they are getting an annual audit every year. All the money that comes through the charter school that comes in and goes out is all public record and is available, and those are the people that we're overseeing. That's all I can address.
So there could be money that's earmarked to go to the EMO that doesn't flow through the board. Is there any way for you to determine that if they're providing service A, service B, service C, and then you say, hey, charter school, how are you getting this other service performed? And they say, oh, well, somebody else is paying that. Is that ever happened? Or do you have information on that?
Melissa Mackin, there's no way for money to flow through the school and not be identified to where it came from or where it's going. To my knowledge, I don't know of any organization that's out there, other organizations out there.
But you'll check for me, because you understand what I'm saying. Yes, I know if it flows through the school, it can't be done. But is it done outside by, this is my private donation that I'm giving to these people to help you out, and they're going to perform this service for you, for me, and I gave it to you as a gift.
Gave it to the school?
I gave it to the, to the EMO to provide it to you.
Melissa Mackin, for the record, I'm not sure what authority I would have to go to like a private individual and request that they tell me who they've made donations to. I don't know how I could, and who would I just start asking people? I mean,
No. I'm sure you can figure it out. All right, we'll see what you can do on that. Sure. Now give me a second here.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. If I'm a very nice person, which people question at times, but I want to donate a ball field to a charter school or a building to a charter school. Is that recorded anywhere? I think that's what it's a private donation. Does it become public knowledge who donated? Let's say I wanted to do that ball field without public recognition. Is it recorded anywhere? That's what I think. I think the chair, I don't want to speak for him, but I think that's what somewhat the chair is going towards.
Melissa Mackin, for the record, I think it depends on who you're giving the money to, right? If you give the money to the charter school, then it's going to be clear. If you give the money to another organization, then it may or may not be clear.
Well, if I just title over the property next to it.
If you title it to the charter school, I believe it's going to come out it's going to be pretty hard to keep that a secret.
So it would be in their reporting and it would be acknowledged. That's what I was really looking for is it'd be very difficult to give what is often called now in politics dark money or black money and keep it hidden.
Something like that would be, if it was titled over to a school, it would be an asset that would be depreciated on their annual audit, just like, any capital item is. So yes, it would show up year after year after year on their audit.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
And now, thank you for giving me a minute to look at what I had here. Yep.
But okay.
Yeah, I know, it wasn't. So under that same section 388A 580 Administrative Code, section 6, subsection C, and so section 6, the preface is the governing body of a charter school enters into a contract with an EMO. The governing body shall require the educational management organization to provide written report to the sponsor, governing body, charter school, blah, blah, blah. And one of the things they're supposed to do them, so I'm assuming some of this is there. Are they doing this? Is there a follow-up? Has there been other? They're supposed to, an identification of each contract, transaction, and agreement entered into by the educational management organization related to carrying out the contract. So they may not all be with the governing body, with the charter school, including without limitation, contracts, transactions, agreements with parent organizations, subsidiaries, and partnerships of the educational management organization. And that's where I'm getting into some of this. Well, we have a contract with this other parent group who's really the owner of your building or really providing the building or the leasing of the building, and we have a separate contract with them. So I'm just trying to get through the smoke and mirrors, the transparency we're trying to talk about. So I would start there on my previous question. And 388A 585 says educational management organizations for the provisions. They can't provide more than 30% of the teachers. And we already established that they would not get PERS if they were working for the private organization. I think that's it on that. So shifting gears a little bit and trying to get into some of the explanation on the various things. So there's the state school performance on the, and what's the word again? And I apologize.
NSPF?
The what?
NSPF?
No, the framework.
Framework.
So there's a framework that the state has that everybody gets measured on for the star rating, or no?
So Melissa McAdam for the record.
Thank you.
So what everybody in the state gets is the NSPF, the Nevada School Performance Framework. So every school gets that.
Framework, yeah.
What is unique to the charter schools is the frameworks. And there's an academic, financial, and organizational framework. And that's just a different, or a higher level of accountability and oversight that we have on charter schools that traditional public schools don't have.
Okay, so separating from the STAR system, and I'm not NSPF, all right, I'll try to remember that. Switching over to your framework, of which there's 3 elements, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you establish that in various things, you have 4 levels where you have, and you go 20, 40, 60, 80? On the points that you can give and on how you do that?
Melissa McAdam for the record. Each framework works a little bit differently. The academic framework is based on a total of 100 points. 60 of those points come from the Nevada School Performance Framework. And then the other points come from comparison data and diversity data. The way the financial framework works is it looks at near-term and long-term ratios, and it is each metric can either meet standards, does not meet standard, or falls far below standard. And then the organizational framework is also points-based. It's looking at about 40 different compliance type issues, but it is also points-based.
So on your academic one, and
Okay.
that's the one I think I have the best reference points to.
Mm-hmm.
that's where there's the point system. You have so many points for the, what's my star rating? So basically, that's somebody else's number, and you give 60% for that, or 60 points. Is it a 100-point base or 80? So
100 points base.
So you give 60 points. And then you have the next comparison is for growth or compared to other schools?
Compared to other schools. So it looks at, let's just take, let's take White Pine, Ely has a charter school, right? It's called Learning Bridge. So then we look at no, that's not a good one because it's rural. Let's take just a school down in Clark County. It looks at how did the charter school do compared to Clark County as a whole, and it also looks at how did school A in this zip code 89501 do compared to the other school in 89501, specifically the schools closest in proximity.
Yeah, see, and I didn't get that part, and I'm not sure, because what I read in the statute and what other people have helped me with, right, is that you do the star rating, and whether that's fair and equitable or not, I understand. We'll go from there. Different rules for charter schools than regular public schools. And then when you do the comparison, what I saw is that the comparison is countywide, but I may be jumping ahead and thinking on the diversity part rather than schools in that area. So then you look at, and it's based on growth, how much the students grew, or how much, where they're at compared to the other schools right there. It's not based on growth.
Melissa Macadin, for the record, it's a little bit confusing because, well, first of all, there aren't different rules on the NSPF for charter schools than there are public schools. I have to.
We'll get into that.
Okay.
I disagree, but we'll get into that.
Okay. So the first metric says, what was your star rating? Were you 3? How many points did you get on the NSPF? Then the next one looks at certain metrics within the NSPF. So I believe it looks at growth, but it may be looking at proficiency also. And it does both the district and the nearest, like, neighborhood school, if you will.
Okay.
It does both.
On that part of it. And then when you get, so how many points do you get for that?
I believe off the top of my head, sorry, I was not prepared to talk
20,
about this
25,
today.
I think.
I believe it's 20 or 25, yep.
Okay. So 60.
20.
I know, 60 for the star rating, if it's 3 or above, correct?
No, they get, if you only got 1 or 2 stars, then that's gonna feed into the metric as well. That's why most schools that don't do well on the NSPF also don't do well on the academic framework.
So what level of the NSPF, the stars, do you have to get the 60 score for you guys?
It's a total of 60 points that they can earn in that section. So if they're a 1 star, I don't have, like, it's all broken down in a guide that tells you exactly if you get, 0 to 20 points on the NSPF, it's worth this many points on our framework. If you get 25 to 50 points, it's worth this many. I don't have that all locked in my memory. So, but if you get a 1 or 2 star on the NSPF, it carries over onto the academic performance framework.
Right, and I think you switched gears on me, because the way I'm understanding it is that you have a scoring. I get 0 to 20, that's where I'm going to score you on my framework evaluation, of which has 3 components, which was the star rating, the academic comparison, and then the diversification. So those 3 things are going to make up your point. 0 to 20 gets you whatever it gets over here. And so you switched. I'm talking about to get the 60, right, within the one element of your scoring system, what star rating gets a 60? Is that prorated?
5 stars. I believe it's 5 stars.
You believe, but you don't know.
I don't have the tables memorized, no, sir.
All right, so that's what I need to know. I just want to see how you're scoring, because if a person gets to 80 points out of 100, they get an A. And last time I checked, 80 points is not an A. 90 points would be an A. and I'm just trying to figure that out. So what do you got to do to get to 60? So let's just say I'm a 5 school, I'm going to get to 60. And then if I'm a 5 school, I'm assuming I'm going to get the other 20 or 25, whichever it is, 80 or 85, depending. So then under your score and the framework, they're going to be at an A. And then the last metric, I think it's 15%. So I think the other one's 25, 15% is on the diversification. Now or diversity, excuse me. Now it's my understanding the diversity is only done district-wide.
Melissa Mackin, for the record, yes.
So you don't do it compared like you do on the education part with schools around you.
Melissa Mackin, for the record, no, it's a district, that's a district metric.
Okay. So if I'm a 5 star school, this and that, I don't even have to worry about the diversity portion of it because I already got an A under your score at 80.
Actually, Melissa Mackin, for the record, actually, that is what you have to worry about. That's probably the biggest thing you have to worry about is if you are a 4 or 5 star school, yeah, that's going to translate over in those other categories. But if you are not serving a population that is representative of the county that your school is in, you will get dinged and you will lose points.
I understand of the county. I just don't think it's a fair comparison countywide versus schools in that zip code as you used earlier or related schools in that area. I don't think that's the right comparison. And irrespective, they wouldn't even have to worry about that part of it to get an A on your performance standard ratings if they scored a 60 and a 25, or if they got a 55 and a 20, they'd be B or better, even if they had 0 on the diversity part. Is that correct? I mean, that's math. I can do math.
Sir, I hesitate to say because I don't have the whole performance framework memorized, and I would be more than happy to come back and do a full presentation on just the academic performance framework where I had all the right information in front of me. But I hesitate to really say something inaccurately on the record here.
Right. And I don't have them memorized either, but I'm not the expert. I know you've only been on this for a little while, though, so it's okay. But you can come back with answers to those questions. So if we're going forward still, when we do look at the star rating scores, and I'm not as familiar with that one as the part we just talked about, but I do know that part of it is based on attendance and other issues on how well are students doing, this and that, and we get into this comparison of what does a public school have to do that a charter school doesn't have to do, and there are several things. So I just want to get into a little bit more on when a charter school enters into a charter contract, who decides? And then I know approval goes to the authority, but the charter school is going to write in what their attendance policy is. The charter school is going to write in how are we going to handle behavioral issues with students. The charter schools are going to handle, can we handle this? I know they're supposed to take students with disabilities, but if they can't accommodate them, they can say, hey, look, we can't accommodate them and send them back to the public school. So when we're talking about absenteeism, a charter school, my understanding, can put into their charter that says, hey, you missed 7 days, we're going to unenroll you. And where do they go? That particular problem goes back to the public school, which they're now being compared against in the charter school. If a person has behavioral issues, whatever it might be, charter school can write in their contract that says, hey, kids with behavioral problems, we're not dealing with them. Maybe not as simple as that, but there are metrics, and they can unenroll that student, send him back to the public school, traditional public school. And there are several areas where I think it creates an advantage, intentional or not, but charter schools regularly put those in. They're allowed to do it. I'm not saying it's not allowed.
They're not allowed to do that. Melissa Mackin, for the record.
Okay.
They're on the same rules for attendance that a traditional school is. They have to follow the same guidelines for suspension, expulsion, long-term expulsion. That is all mapped out in NRS, and charter schools absolutely have to follow that. They have to follow all the restorative justice policies. They're on the hook for all of that.
Well, and I read the whole statute and the NAC, and I didn't see that in there. I saw that they can put into their charter contract attendance rules that are different than the school district, and that students can be unenrolled. And I can get the school district to come in, whoever it might be, to say that what you just said is untrue from what I've been told. Well, you guys can have dueling conversations here, and then we can maybe get to the bottom of it. But they can put those provisions regarding attendance into their charter contract. Is that true or false? They can put attendance provisions in their charter contract.
Melissa McAdin, false. They cannot.
So I'll take a look at it. I'll find it in here. And that's not what I read. Same thing with behavioral issues. Same thing if they can't, although to a lesser degree, there's more hoops to jump through if there's a student with disability. Okay, did you have a comment?
Melissa McAdin, for the record, they have to identify that they have like a attendance policy and that they have a special education policy manual, but those policy manuals have to be in compliance with state and federal law. So yes, they have to produce that so that when we're evaluating that application, we can see that they understand there's rules about how you deal with behavior in the state of Nevada at a public school. There's rules about how you have to educate students who fall under IDEA, and they understand that. So they have to provide those policies, but they have to be in alignment with state and federal law, without exception.
So you're saying that there's never been a student unenrolled for an absentee problem in a charter school in the state?
Melissa McAdin, for the record, to my knowledge, there has not been, that has not happened.
Well, I'll try to get the information to educate you on that. So let's talk a little bit about enrollment, and I have some questions on that. And I understand that there are provisions that they're allowed to put in their charter agreement again regarding enrollment. And I know it's first come, first serve in theory, sort of. I know you're shaking your head. First come, first serve, sort of. And that there's a lottery system for that, and then there's a lot of rules about that from transferring from one school to another and various things. They're also allowed to put in there, so it's not first come, first serve. If your older sister or older brother go to that school, you can get ahead of everybody else. You may end up in a secondary lottery, but you're ahead. So explain to me how and where, because I read that they're allowed, I'm not saying everybody does, but they're allowed to give preference to a student who is enrolled in pre-kindergarten. So what are the rules to get into pre-kindergarten selection there? I didn't see anything on selection for pre-kindergarten. So if they're out there and doing recruiting and saying all these wonderful statistics that may not be apples to apples, we're so much better, come to our school, enroll in pre-kindergarten, that way we can ensure you to get in.
Melissa McAdin, for the record, we only have, I think, 2 charter schools that offer pre-K. So my understanding, but I can double check, is that they are operating their pre-Ks in a similar manner where it's a lottery based. So it's not really first come, first serve. First come, first serve only really applies if they don't fill all their seats. So let's just say let's just take pre-K for an example. There's 10 pre-K seats. 9 people apply. It's first come, first serve. They all get in. 15 people apply. It's not the first 10 that got in. Those 15 people that applied, if you have more applicants than you have seats, it automatically goes to a lottery. So my understanding, but I can find out for you, is that of those, and I think we only have 2 preschools in charter schools, they run a lottery the same way they do for kindergarten.
that's why I said sort of. It's first come, first serve. And I know the lottery, and I understand if you have more seats and you limit how many they can have, that they would have to have this process in order to do that. But then siblings can jump the line, various things like that. And so I don't know that it's as comparable as you guys keep saying about school district got to take every kid, including the ones you say allegedly are not unenrolled. But they got to take every kid, and they got to provide all of those services. And it is slightly different for charter schools when they do that. And I know they're supposed to, the way I read the rule, send out an advertisement, a brochure to all of the kids. Who oversees that? What are they allowed to put into that advertisement? Are there? I didn't see it, or I don't recall if there were some parameters on how they're supposed to, or what they're allowed to put in as a framework and a benchmark or whatever. If there's rules on that.
Melissa McAdam, for the record, to my knowledge, we don't pre-approve their flyer. They just have to send it out to, I believe it's every household within 2 miles of the proposed location, and it has to be mailed out 45 days before they can have an enrollment or a lottery, so that all the families in the surrounding neighborhood have time to apply to the school. But we don't monitor those mailers. We don't sign off on them, I should say.
So the actual content is unknown and left to the marketing devices of individuals.
Melissa McAdam, correct.
Okay. I think that, to me, seems to be an issue. So I've heard you say this before, and I want to dig into this a little bit, moving just a little bit. So you've told, and I've heard you say it, that we need to have charter school equity. So tell me what the equity means to you, charter school equity.
Melissa McAdam, for the record. So I think a really great example of part of equity that was missing from the Nevada landscape for a long time was transportation, right? We know that there are families out there who aren't in a position to provide transportation to and from school for their students. So charter schools not having access to transportation funding was an equity issue. Now that we have funding available to provide transportation, it provides greater equity. It opens the door for more families to participate and choose a charter school. Families who historically maybe wanted their child to go to a charter school, but they have a single parent or a parent who just, for whatever circumstance, they're not in a position to get their child to and from school 2 times a day, right? So that's like a major equity issue. Facilities funding is a major equity issue for charter schools. Just any situation where a charter school isn't being funded the same as a traditional public school is an equity issue for the kids in those schools.
So I understand the transportation deal, but people volunteered for charter schools, and they want transportation, they're going to go regular traditional public schools. But when it comes to the section you mentioned about facility funding, and we're going to get into some questions on that as well. My understanding, with the exception of maybe Washoe County, the traditional public schools don't have facility funding separate from what they get from the state through the per pupil funding, et cetera. So, and Washoe County passed a ballot initiative to fund that, to alleviate the overcrowding, which has largely been accomplished, which is good. And now they're working on improvements in safety requirements and various things for the schools. So do other school districts. So I don't know that that's necessarily an equity facility funding provision. Because I don't think other people get money from the state for that either, is all I'm saying. Melissa
McAdam, for the record. I'm not to tax expert. I think there's a few counties like White Pine that have reached their tax threshold and they aren't getting the per pupil amount for facilities, but those counties are some of the small counties and they are the exception. On average in Nevada, students get about $1,200 per pupil from their local property taxes to fund capital projects, with very few exceptions. The majority do have access to that funding for capital expenses.
Understood. So, like I say, to me, the equity issue kind of goes both ways, and we can disagree if you want, but I think there are differences. Charter schools have different than traditional public schools regarding curriculum, regarding enrollment. I think differences on teacher evaluations, differences on teacher credentials, difference on attendance rules, that's where we might disagree, difference on rules with students with behavioral concerns, students with disabilities, and so on. So when we talk about equity, advantages for one, disadvantages for the other, I think works both ways. And we can stop there. There's not really a question there. But if we're going to talk about equity, it needs to go both ways. Okay. Before I take the whole day up with everybody, are there any follow-up questions from my friends in Southern Nevada? Not. Senator Lang, no?
Chair, I wanted just to make a comment, and it's not about what you were asking, but we had public comment earlier about from a number of unions, not just one, but a number of unions talking about prevailing wage and transparency. And I just want to make, just for the record, want to make sure that we keep that on the front, because I think it's something we have worked long and hard to get prevailing wage for our workers in our state. And I just want to make sure that we address that and that it is addressed in whatever we do so that it happens. Just like we require other businesses to do it, I think that the Charter School Authority should have to do the same, and I'll look forward to seeing that that is happening.
And thank you for that timely comment, because that was the section of my questioning that I was going to go into next. So good timing, and thank you. Anybody else down south while we're here? Seeing none. So along those lines on the prevailing wage, so let me just ask the first question. Are charter schools required to pay prevailing wage on their facilities?
Melissa Macadin, charter schools are required to pay prevailing wage.
Can you get me information on remodels, reconstructs, ground-up construction, adding in a new bus stop, if you got all that stuff done now, where charter schools went out to a bid, same as a public school, paid prevailing wage for that contract if it was over the 100,000 limit? Can you give me an example of where that was done? Because all of the gentlemen that called in earlier today and people that I've talked to, north and south, says it's not happening and that there's systematic mechanisms, evasion, however it might be being done, which goes back to some of my questions about EMOs and all that stuff.
Melissa Macadin, for the record. In my previous role as executive director of Oasis Academy in Churchill County, we're building a high school right now. We are paying prevailing wage. Elko Institute, they're building, or not building, but they're retrofitting a new building right now. They're paying prevailing wage. I don't know of a charter school that is using their funds to build a building that is not paying prevailing wage.
Oh, and there you said the key words, using their funds. So how is all that fit into the equation? And when a person puts in an application as part of your financial review and various things, and we can use the one that we just passed up here at Washoe County in the North Valleys there, and they say they're going to build a whole new facility, they're going to buy property. I know Washoe County came up with say, hey, you have to do this before you buy property, and you have to do this for the building and all that stuff. So how, and I didn't review the whole 1,000 pages of stuff, I'm sorry. I read a lot of other stuff, okay? How was that financing going to go forward? It said they were going to use some type of the Turner Foundation, I believe it was. So is that going to be like a privately held building for a public school paid for by, not passed through the charter school, and then they just pay rent, and they're going to claim an exemption from prevailing wage or competitive bidding on down the line? And that's what I'm talking about. Is there transparency there? Do you guys review that? It's part of your financial oversight, if you ask me. How much is that lease going to be if they're doing that? And we'll ask the rest of the questions here in a second, but answer that one first.
Melissa Mackin, for the record, that application, I'll be honest, I can't say exactly all the specifics off the top of my head for how that's going to work, so I hesitate to guess and get it wrong.
It would be scary if you did know.
Yeah, I actually am not 100% sure exactly how that's going to work.
But you're going to find out and report back or give us some more information
sure.
on that. Because this is what I have understood or think is part of the process, where they say, oh, no, we'll magically just build a building on a piece of land that we bought that just happens to match where you want to put your school, and we'll build it to your specifications, right down to the flagpole in front, meeting all of the school district and public building requirements, ADA, the rest of it, and miraculously just say, how convenient that we have this building that we built on spec right here for you for your school, and we're going to lease it to you or rent it to you, whatever it might be. That's the evasion that I'm afraid is happening. In other charter schools that are doing it right, that's good. Can you tell me if those charter schools, the ones you gave examples of, did they use the competitive bidding process under NRS 338 and advertise and do all of that stuff, and they're submitting certified payroll reports?
Melissa Mackin, for the record, yes, they're required to, and they did.
So are all of them doing it? That you have oversight over? You have 85 schools. Every construction project is, is there a requirement to tell you when they're going to do this? Is every single school been built under those competitive bidding prevailing wage requirements?
To my understanding, if the charter school itself is paying for it, Melissa Mackin, for the record, I think you're right. I think in some instances there are third parties that build these buildings that are public, other types of organizations. And my understanding is that essentially the way the agreements are structured with those entities, it precludes them from some of the language in the law. That's my understanding. I am not a real estate expert or attorney.
Well, you guys are in charge of the oversight, right? And you need to make sure, I can cite a half a dozen, maybe more, 20, or 24, right? There's a lot of times in here that says part of your job is to make sure that they're complying with all state and federal laws and various things. So I would have your people go back and look at NRS 353 regarding lease purchase, lease installment agreements, and those types of things. That's for state government. Go look at NRS 354, which covers local governments, which a charter school authority is a public body subject to all of the rules. They are not exempt unless they go through the financing for public bidding. The financing provisions in there, I think it's 550 to 695. That part I remember. NRS. So those two things cover them on those types of things. And then Senate Bill 226 passed just this last session, which says that strict scrutiny, or not exactly those words, but careful consideration has to be given over novel financing provisions so that prevailing wage is not evaded. So I know people think that, oh, we're exempt from this because we did this. It's miraculously was built there. I said, no, it's a public school. You guys want to be public schools? You got to follow the public rules and the public bidding, and you can't circumvent all of these things. And as you see, most of our public comment today regarding charter schools was all about that issue. It's a problem. It's not imaginary. And people are doing these things, and I believe they're doing it illegal now. Because here is the history. In 2011, Senator Hammond brought a bill, his big bill for charter schools and various things. It was held up to the very end and the last day. And he said, what do you got to have? And I says, you need to put prevailing wage on these charter schools. And he did, and we put it in. Then 2015 came, and that legislature, they took it out. And then during that period, until it was put back in, I think in the 19th session, under Assembly Bill 136 by Speaker Frierson, that removed the exemption from prevailing wage. It didn't put any more specific language in it, just removed the exemption. During that period between 15 and 18, that was the last time, 2018 was the last time a school was financed under that bonding through Department of Business and Industry, because there was no prevailing wage on it. Nobody's used that financing since, because they think they have to pay prevailing wage, but they have to pay prevailing wage on all of it. And then we have 226 this last session. We also had Assembly Bill 190 in between, which was my bill, I think, in 19, that said that, hey, irregardless, even if you're not a public body, that it applies to the same extent as if the public body led it itself. And then 226 says we have to look at these novel financing provisions with strict scrutiny. If it's going to be for a public school built to those specifications, it's a public work, and in prevailing wage and competitive bidding applies. So I would ask you to look into that and see how many projects have been constructed and what the most recently approved one is planning on doing, because I bet you they're not planning on paying prevailing wage and trying to circumvent that rule.
Melissa Mackinnon, be happy to look into it for you.
Excellent. And if we think of other questions in between now and then, I'll send them to you, or I'll get Patrick our policy analyst to send them to you. Same thing with any of the other committee members on that. I think I hit most of the questions that I wanted to. I'm sure I'm going to go back and look at my notes and say, damn, I forgot that one or this one. But I just think some of the directions that the interpretations and implementations have taken are not in alignment with what the legislature envisioned. And we may need to make some adjustments, because when I look and see out there, there was a vision of Rome and this isn't it. There was a vision of charter schools and this isn't it. Committee members, any other questions, follow-ups?
Chair, I have a question.
Okay, I'm happy. I'm getting a dry throat. Vice Chair.
Thank you. My question is about new build. So it's my understanding that a charter school cannot be built, for example, across the street from a traditional public school. Am I correct in that?
Melissa Mackinnon, for the record, I don't believe there's any provision that disallows that. There's actually many examples in our state of charter schools, public schools, private schools, public schools like across the street, kitty corner, next door to each other. Lots of examples throughout the state.
So there are no rules that it needs to be a certain mileage apart or anything like that?
Not to my knowledge. Melissa Mackinnon, for the record, not to my knowledge.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Committee members, any additional questions for today? And we'll get you scheduled for the next meeting. You've got notes, and we'll send some questions so we can do some follow-up. Any additional questions, members? Seeing none, we will let me get to the other screen here. Close out agenda item 3D on the State Public Charter School Authority. Thank you for your patience and answers to your questions, and we're looking forward to your follow-up. All right, so that brings us to the next agenda item, which is our second period of public comment. So if we have anybody here in Carson City, we'll start there for public comment. Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Legislative Sunset Committee. For the record, my name is Eddie Abeliser. I'm speaking to you today on behalf of the Doral Academy of Northern Nevada Foundation. I'm a board member that has proudly served our community in providing highest quality of education for many of our students throughout this region. I do believe that the questions you've had, Mr. Chair, are insightful, but perhaps needing more information to help construct a fuller view of what's really actually happening. I have spoken and reached out to many of the building trade union members and talked to them about that. At the end of the day, it's just undoable without the equitable funding for facilities. Public traditional neighborhood students get about 35% more than a public charter school student. And many of these schools have to take their money out of their DSA or per pupil and put that towards rent or lease just to make sure that there's a building for these students to go to. As Chair McAdin has expressed, these public charter schools reveal a very unique pedagogical implementation in our state that many of our traditional districts don't even offer. True unique pedagogies that teach a student the way that their unique learning style needs versus a one-size-fits-all in many of our traditional districts that tend to offer singular pedagogical approach. And so we think that these types of efforts are really valuable based on the metrics. Hearing you talk about the reference to Gladiator in Rome, I would ask, take a look at the data. I mean, we're showing that many of these public charter schools are serving more students with disabilities per capita than their traditional districts because the parents are begging for that one-on-one approach that the public charter school is providing for their student with disability, and that's behavioral disorders as well. I think that it is more than it was intended to be, and it's something that you and your members should be really proud of in the construction of a really tremendous program that aligns with the oversight and transparency that the authority brings. They have closed down schools that, I think that's testament to the job that they've done. If you're not serving children and you're not doing it the right way, your school should be closed. And I think that it adds in value to the districts. It reduces the overcrowding in many of our districts and helps provide unique pedagogical approaches. That school that you talked about that's going in the North Valleys, the school that's going in the North Valleys is predominantly, I think, over 99% Hispanic Latino school that has English as a second language in their home. And it's not just free reduced lunch. Almost the entire school is low income on the variety of certified community programs. I mean, it is truly intended for what you guys wanted. And as you've mentioned, the Washoe County School District has made comments sort of pushing back on the implementation of that school, even though it's serving the intent of what the legislature and the most neediest population in the North Valleys of Washoe. So I appreciate your questions. We're hoping we can provide more information that can help understand and that the building trade unions can come to the table, and maybe the state can rectify the inequity by fixing that 35% gap where public charter school students don't receive from what the traditional districts do. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else here in Carson City? Seeing none, anybody in the Sawyer building? Seeing none, broadcast, anybody on the phone lines wishing to call in?
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to offer public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
I understand we have two. We're just waiting for them to hook up.
Hello, this is Ignacio Prado, the Executive Director of Victoria Academy Charter School and a board member of the Charter School Association of Nevada. I just wanted to reiterate my earlier point that this venue seems forced or inappropriate. I just frankly don't believe that I understand that the Sunset Committee does not always sunset agencies or conducts a review. However, my view of what happened over the last few hours is that it was also adversarial at times. Aspersions may have been made of the way that charter school operators function as schools, maybe implied that certain general practices are occurring that, even if isolated incidents could be found, are not generally what's happening. As a charter school operator, someone who comes to my building at 6:30 a.m. every single day to make sure that we do things the right way, I can assure you most of us are eager to follow the law. There are many mandates that we have to follow. Just on the compliance side alone, we have 196 deliverables just on compliance. The Charter School Authority to make sure that we're in compliance with many of the statutes, which are found in our charter-specific statutes in some cases, but in many cases they're found in the broader overall statutes. And so one point of direction that I would offer is you cannot simply look at the charter school statutes to see what we're subject to, because in many cases, part of the parenthetical listing of entities that are subject to certain rules around discipline, attendance, safety, emergency operations, et cetera, are going to be found in the general statutes, which are going to list school districts, university schools, and charter schools as schools that are subject to the same rules and regulations. So, I do hope that we have an opportunity to gather some notes. Melissa McAdam has an opportunity to gather some notes, but I also think, I would invite you to contact the Charter School Association and give us the same opportunity to give you insight as to what our practices are, as appears to have been gathered from adverse parties. And certainly I personally invite you to reach out if necessary. As I believe, as with all things, there may be some places where we have fallen short and can use some feedback. But generally speaking, some of the practices that were ascribed to our schools today, I feel are unfair, and they're not what's written in the statute, and most of us are following the statute to the best of our ability. So just implore you to reach out to folks in the charter school sector and to get some insight as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Broadcasting, any other callers?
Thank you, Chair. There are no other callers wishing to offer public comment at this time.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. We will try to, I know you took notes. We'll try to get Patrick to send those questions out as well. If there's any others from the committee, please send them through our policy analyst, and we'll get them to the charter school people or any of the other groups today. With that, we're to agenda item 5, and we are adjourned. Thank you.